everybody for being here. This is a very important topic, uh, both from a strategic, then economic, and environmental point of view. So, the total ban of lead in ammunition and in the fishing activities, it is controversial. Number one, it's not very democratic because the commission decided to use a delegated act, so they bypassed the parliament. Sorry, but I believe in Europe and I believe in democracy. I don't like this. Number two, it is a measure which is very ideological and not scientific because, and you will see today from the speakers that are here, there's not very strong scientific evidence that tells that the impact on environment and human health is significant. Actually, there are scientific evidence that is not significant. But and last but not least, is totally ideological and useless because it will not bring any advantage on the volume and the numbers of the animal population, especially in the migratory birds and so on. And considering that we already ban lead in the wetlands, which is the only thing that there was some scientific evidence, especially on the ducks species, which are considered as bottom feeders. So they had some negative effect in terms of ingesting lead shots in the bottom of the lakes. But there's no scientific evidence regarding all the other animals which are not the bottom feeders. We're talking about 7 different species of ducks. Now, this initiative by the Commission not only will not bring any useful results in terms of human health and environmental health, but will actually cause some major problems. Number one, the increase on the production cost, especially in the military sector, and considering the international situation, we do not really want to have a increase in the cost of military ammunition, but also will increase, which would like to have some of my colleagues from the environmental and animalist party, will increase the suffering of animals, because alternative to lead is steel, which tends to injure but not kill. So these poor animals get injured and they go die somewhere else. But not only that, we have to also consider the danger of the ricochet. And there are some cases in Sweden when they decide to ban lead and go to steel. First day, 2 people died because of the ricochet, because the steel tends to bounce around and not stop like lead. But not only that, the most important thing is that I want to underline the positive role of hunters, shooters, fishermen in the managing of the environment, because in the control of the biodiversity. And, all of us understand that, which is incredible, but in the last 20 years, we had an invasion of allochthon or not domestic, let's say like that, species not only animals, but also vegetables and so on and so on and so on, and the horrible impact that they have on the domestic species. So we need to balance that. In my opinion, this is our moral position. Man needs to balance biodiversity, and both in the fishing and the hunting. Now I say fishing and hunting, meaning that the species that are in the water or on the ground or in the air. And wow, now we have the vice president here, so I say shut up. So please listen to all the speakers. They're very scientific and very serious person on this topic. And the important thing that Europe takes a decision which is scientific, not ideological. Now I give the floor to my vice president, Antonio Berna of the European Parliament. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Fiocchi, my colleague, for organizing this moment of reflection. Thank you and welcome to all our distinguished guests and all the people that are here in presence and online that are hearing from us. This event is a moment of discussion at the European Parliament on the use of lead in hunting and fishing in light of the proposal for a total ban on lead-based ammunition and accessories. Mr. Fiocchi told me about that some times ago, and we are discussing about that in our commission, but also in our political group, but also among us, because we are representing territories where hunting is an important part of life of our territory. So we need to be practical. We need not to be ideological, and I think we have to reflect and work together to find a solution and to give the opportunity to collect scientific opinion on that moment, because this commission in the years sometimes moves from ideological purposes and create some letters or some legislation that is not, I think, fitting with the reality of what we are living and of what we are experiencing in our territories. So I think that we all share the need to protect the environment and human health. I think that we cannot say different things. But it's equally important to understand that real impact of lead use and to assess is whether or how the alternatives currently available can ensure safety, animal welfare, and economic balance. Because I think there are three aspects that we have to focus on. This is why I consider dialogue with experts, the hunting community, trade associations, sportsmen and women, and the researcher to be essential. Only through open discussion we can reach balance and pragmatic solution. I think that we are all here for this purpose. So our task is not to fuel fears or impose ideological choices, but to find concrete answers to bring together environmental protection, health, safety, the economy and tradition. So I'm confident that today's work will provide a valuable contribution to this direction, and I'm here to support your event, but also to be part of this process if it's necessary inside our commission, in our prerogatives as a parliamentary, but also as a representative of a territory. I'm from Lazio in the center of Italy, and we really feel this problem, and also the problem that could come from this decision of the commission. So thank you for being here. I don't want to speak too much, but it's a pleasure to be here and also to work together to find intelligent solution, in my opinion, that can be useful for who's hunting in the territories of Europe, not only Italy, of course, but also for the health and for the environment, and to bring good sense, in Italy we say buon senso, no? in the decisions that I think that is to be the value that can inspire our work in the daily work in the European Parliament. So thank you so much, and have a good day of reflection.
Now, we start with the speakers, and we start from a very important point of view, which is the point of view of General Jaromir Zuna. He's a Deputy Chief of Staff of the Czech Armed Force. Of course, he worked with NATO and so on and so on and so on. And he had a lot of positions, including Commander of Training Command and Military Academy, and Director of Logistic Agency and everything else. And he has a lot of experience with NATO, so he understands very well the military situation. So I give the word to General Zuna.
Sure.
By the way, thank you, Armantesh, for being here.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, colleagues, if there are among you people with previous experience in military service, I would like just to clarify one point. I'm retired, 3-star general. I'm not acting anymore in the military. And my last position was First Deputy of the Chief of General Staff. And Mr. Vondra asked me if I could attend this meeting, and thank you very much for the invitation and giving me this opportunity to actually support your effort, because I believe it is noble and it is right to do, especially in this period of time in current security environment in Europe and in the world as such. Before the meeting, I had several. I'm not an expert in the area, but for a number of years, I was also commander of logistics. So I was involved in all these things regarding ammunition regulations and also acquisitions. But I had a talk with representatives of defense industry, also the president of the National Association of Defense Industry, plus people from our military, from the general staff, asking them for their opinion about this restriction of lead in ammunition. And I can tell you that all of them have the same opinion, actually the same one as you expressed, Mr. Chairman, in your opening speech, and we will do everything to support you. I mean, in the Czech Republic, and at the end of my presentation, I will mention the newly adopted document by the government of the Czech Republic, which is actually declaring absolutely clearly that Czech Republic will be actively advocating against all initiatives which will actually be an impediment of flexibility and production of ammunition in Europe. It is not pertaining only to the Czech Republic, but I believe it is an issue for all of us. So very briefly, a few points which in some of them may be repetitory to what has been already said in this meeting. First of all, it's not about lead. It's also with the same implications about all the chemicals which are used in production of small arms, ammunition, powders, materials, and so on. So the implications of this proposal from the European Union will propagate throughout the industry. So it's not only about the bullets or ammunition. The impact is much broader. Second, we are talking about armed forces or military applications, but the true answer or the scope we are actually talking about is the state security system with all its elements. And I would like to remind to everybody who is actually proposing this proposal that in NATO summit in 2016 in Warsaw, the key term which was adopted was resilience. And that also includes defense industry, and that also includes the capacities, flexibility, and ability of the industry to produce the adequate amount, types of ammunition in necessary time, and being also able to react on the demands and the development in the security environment. There is very strong underestimation where we actually stand in terms of defense industry, because according to open sources, the recently mentioned, there is about 600,000 people working in defense industry in Europe. That is less than one conglomerate in China, like AVIC, for example. 1 million employees, 100 companies, 50% of which are research and development institutions. And China has 10 of those. Multiply it, and around it, there is myriad of private companies. And in the United States, it's 3.5 million roughly. So since 2016, we are developing our state security system in much broader sense, not only military, police, and other elements, but also we are supporting the clubs, sports clubs, hunters associations, everybody who is actually practicing shooting and is using rifles, and because these all constitute, in case of crisis, sources for mobilization and activation of our national defense system. Professional corps. I believe what I say now is it's very much common to all European countries. Since 1990, we've been building a very small professional corps of our militaries, mainly for expeditionary warfare. But now things are changing. For example, in our military, 14 territorial defense battalions will be built from the scratch. Just imagine how much training they will need. And all the training, majority of the training, will not be conducted in military training areas, but in private facilities, private ranges, and so on, civilian facilities. And they are now under pressure because they have to follow all these regulations, and even this one. And if it is becoming not economically viable, these civilian facilities are being closed down, and we need them. So this is also one sort of implication. Military material. If we change the composition in terms of material of bullets, everything, it is not only about the ammunition as such, but also technology and materials which we are using for production of rifles, family of small arms, and everything. So the pressures in the barrels and everything will be changing. The composition of the powder and everything, all the chemicals, and it will have impact on the life cycle management of these weapon systems. So they will have to be adjusted or produced the new ones, and again, by implications, it will have a negative impact on the environment because steel mills will have to work. Next slide, please. Oh, security environment. And this is what we do not understand at all. If we look at the security environment in Europe right now, the conflict in Ukraine, what's happening along the eastern borders of NATO, we just do not understand how anybody may have an idea to create hurdles in production of weapons and military material, if I summarize it under one term. Defense industry, capacities and feasibilities. The idea that one production line will be capable of switching from one type of production to different type, from lead to steel and so on, is just very naive. Companies will have to actually build two production lines because they have to be, they will not have that ability to switch, retrain the people, and arrange for the whole supply chain. That will require stock of material and everything. Needless to explain, but I will say one point. Even before the war in Ukraine, 15% of the labor in our industry in the Czech Republic were foreigners. And there was even demand for 500,000 more. Today, in some parts of defense industry, it's very complicated to use Czech language when you want to work to workers. See, because there is shortage of people. And our labor market is stretched. And a similar situation is elsewhere. So there is very limited capacity or ability to hire, train, and get qualified people for defense industry. As such, the labor force in the defense industry is aging. And this proposed regulation cannot help. It will be just another impediment in the process. National industry and impact. European Union countries differ in terms of structure of industry. And the Czech Republic is definitely one of the most industrialized in Europe. So the impact will not be evenly potential impact of this regulation will not be evenly distributed across European Union member states. That is also our concern. Competitiveness, international market. Our defense industry is built for export. 95% of all the production goes abroad. Only 5% roughly is dedicated for the Czech military. So every restriction, every additional problem which our defense industry will have to solve, which is increasing the cost of production, means that we will be less competitive on the international market. And I believe it is not only our concern, it applies to all of us. Transition. It will not be quick, like some people may think. It will require complete refurbishing and replacement of current technologies or building additional capacities. And to ensure the full supply chain will be a huge task. Next slide, please. I will speed up. Okay, what we are actually doing is that this proposition actually will have impact on price formation across price formation of the military material across Europe, and that may eventually lead to that our competitiveness on the international market as a whole, as Europe, will be decreasing. Conditions are very difficult. Energy cost is skyrocketing, and that may eventually lead to relocation of production abroad. And we are seeing that. You can see that even in the Czech Republic, moving to the United States and other parts of the world, which are not following ideas like the one which are included in this regulation, this proposal. Risks, of course, we may lose competence eventually over the time. We may lose competitiveness, and it's nothing good for European Union if we want to be one of the key players in the world. Recruitment, and that is something which is being omitted in all the discussions. We need to engage youth in sports and shooting activities, hunting activities, early in their lives, in such a way promoting and indulging them to this kind of activities, because one day they will be a cohort of young people eligible for recruitment for our state security system, not only military, but police and others as well. And since this proposal it will increase the cost of ammunition, even for sport and so on. For less people, it will be affordable, for young people, I mean, and we will not be able to grow the next generation of people with positive attitude towards resilience, security, defense, and eventually joining military. Agency workers, labor, I have already mentioned that there is shortage of people on the market. You know, any change or necessity for our defense industry to build redundant capacities which are not adequate to current needs and the situation in the security environment are not welcome. Last slide, please. Last one. Okay. I don't know if you can read that, so I will read that, especially that bottom paragraph. Just recently, it was 20th of August, recently, our government adopted intention to procure military ammunition by the Ministry of Defense. And I will read the paragraph which is included in that document. A necessary prerequisite for maintaining and developing the capacities of the defense industry is also the active defense and of the security interest of the Czech Republic against certain initiatives that directly pose a threat to production capacities in the Czech Republic or the EU. These are mainly some initiatives of the European institutions in the field of chemicals regulations, IG, lead in ammunition, or chemicals necessary for the production of energy materials and initiators. So basically, it is official position of the Czech Republic. Czech Republic will do everything to advocate against this proposal. Thank you very much.
No, I think General Zuna brought up some very important topics. We have to remember, and this is come also from my experience in my previous life before I became a politician, that lead is available, is cheap, easy to work, and especially does not, you can get lead in a lot of different countries in the world. So you don't have also the strategic problem of depending from China, from Russia, or other countries like that. And it's very easy to recycle. So this is very important. Now we go to the next speaker. Very important one, because most of the lead ammunition are used in sport shooting. And we have a long tradition in Europe and also in Italy regarding trap shooting, ski shooting, dynamic shooting, and so on and so on and so on. It is extremely important that we preserve this because, for example, and this is a crazy scenario, but if we ban lead in Europe, all our professional shooters would need to go to Morocco or England or US to train because they could not use the ammunition that are used in the Olympics and in the World Championships around the world. So this will be really crazy. But I give the word to Luciano Rossi. There's no presentation for him. I mean, he's a president of the Shooting Sport Federation, everything else. So I leave the word to him.
Good morning to everybody. Thanks for the invitation. Thank you, Pietro Fiocchi. As president of our International Shooting Sport Federation, we represented 163 national federations around all the continent. I would first like to thank you for your attention to the use discussed here, and consequently, the potential impact it could have in the entire shooting sport world. All sporting disciplines are based on rules that are accepted and shared globally, in particular, shooting sport, some of which have always been part of the modern Olympics, are based on the rules which define the type of weapons and ammunition. These rules are the result of shared experience among various countries and reflect a balance between each country's ability to provide resources and equipment to its athletes for them to be able to carry out their preparation and training activity in a reproducible context and therefore compete on equal footing in all international competitions, and it is easily understood that changing these rules is neither simple nor quick. The proposal we are about to discuss will ban the use of lead in shooting sport ammunition in the European Union or allow under very strict conditions and requirements. We believe the specific measures are unnecessary, as UA shooting ranges operators are already required to operate in compliance with the environmental regulations. These regulations require to adoption a technique for intercepting and collecting lead bullets, preventing their dispersion into the environment and allowing their reuse according to good circular economy practice. The additional condition that will be introduced by the regulation, both technically and bureaucratically and administratively, appear totally inappropriate for the proposal with which they were designed and which they are intended to achieve. Instead, they risk being extremely damaging. I would almost say lethal for the entire system, which is not preparing and lacks to the technical and financial means to support them. The risk we fear is that a large portion of shooting ranges in Europe will be forced to close, with a net loss of sporting experience, history, and tradition, as well as economic value and jobs. Ultimately, it seemed to us that the proposal put forward by the Commission in the expression of the ideological position, rather than the comprehensive and well-motivated set of measures aimed at achieving the best and the most concrete environment sustainability possible, as it should be. We hope it will be not approved. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks to President Rossi, very good point of view, very important, and I hope that the Commission will take notice of what you just said. For me, it's extremely important to discuss this. Again, lead, even though we understand that from a health point of view, can cause some problems, especially to the children. But on the other hand, has a lot of very useful utilization. For example, the protecting layer through radiation or X-rays or anything like that in the health system and so on and so on and so on. So we need to be very pragmatic in approaching this topic. And by killing the total use of lead in civilian ammunition, will make lead less available, more expensive, and all bunch of other problems for the industry, not only the sector of fishing, hunting, and sport shooting. Now we go to the next speaker, very technical one, so pay attention. Barbera is a nuclear engineer. Just to say something, and he was a former director of ARPA, which is the regional agency for environmental protection. So he has a lot of knowledge regarding what happens in the environment, regarding chemical substances, but also in the work environment, so protection of the workers in the industry, and so on and so on and so on. Water discharge, presence of chemicals in the water, water treatment, and so on and so on and so on. So he will speak about lead concentration in soil and the consequences, possible consequences of lead ban in ammunition. So please, Mr. Barbera.
Thank you, Mr. Fiocchi. Good morning to everybody. As Pietro told you, I have some numbers. I'm a technician, so I hope not to be too boring, obviously, but it was necessary to make serious this discussion, not ideological, as he told before. So
sorry if I stop you, but I want to say thanks to Ciccioli, Emeritus, and the Fracos, and all my colleagues that come here to listen to us. So sorry.
Okay, so we can start. First of all, we start about which is the lead concentration in Europe and how is distributed. So the first significant, very significant number is that the lead concentration in soil is on urban part of the territory, not in agricultural soil. So this is very important because we are going to try to stop something while the problem is to clean a big contamination metal. We are consciousness of it, but that is it in another part of the soil. So we see that we have a median of 23 milligram per kilogram in urban soil. As you know, medium say many things and nothing. That is, obviously there are soil with 3.2, that is cleanest soils, and we have soils with higher concentration, but is an important number, 23. And we have on the urban peak that are 200 milligram per kilogram. We have the London area, and we'll see after why, that has some soils that are right to 10,000 milligram per kilogram. So we must not forget this data. Why we have, next please, why we have this data? This, I try to be quick, and this is only a summary of a study that we have done in this month, more complex, and as he told before, a scientific studies. So according to all scientific works that have been done in Europe, and not only in Europe, but everybody say the same thing. The concentration in soils, obviously, is due to leaded gasoline, because until 2021, when the last nation, Algeria, stopped lead gasoline, we had emission that was incredibly high due to gasoline. And now the soil are contaminated, and the source is the 45% due to leaded gasoline. And then we have another big problem, that is lead-based paint. This is 25% of the soil contamination. So again, the third, obviously, is not anti-emission, but is industrial emissions. That is 15% of contamination. And last, not least, obviously, but last is anti-emission. If we go in detail, next please, with the urban versus rural contamination, what we see? We see that the concentration in the urban soils is from 3 to 10 times higher 10 rural areas. As I told you before, we see that we have the extreme case, obviously, extreme, not general, but in London, where we find near transport corridors, concentration up to 10,000 milligram per kilogram. So we are conscious that lead is a problem, but probably not lead ammunition, but something else. After that, some
No, no, probably the hunters and the fishermen go downtown London to shoot them.
I don't know. Yes, probably. Exactly. So we must work to reduce this contamination. After me, there will be more important person that we speak about sanitary consequences, about illness and so on. But remember, which is the origin, which is the problem, because we must be scientific. We must understand which is the priority, and not if ideological and nothing else. So this is the data. The soil contamination reflect anthropogenic influence that derive from industry, that derive from cars. That's the data. And this is evident from the contaminated blood lead decline. This is the reduction due from the 80s, when there was the maximum, because we must remember that the contamination due to lead gasoline was on air, after on the soil. So we have the bigger contamination because we breathe air contaminated. And so,
Sorry, Bruno, I have to stop you because the president has an airplane to catch. So thank you, Luciano, for coming here.
So we can see the reduction. And as I told before, I am a technician. I work in the environmental field since 30 years. But we must remember that zero doesn't exist. Zero. So we must find a compromise so that we can have a future, we can grow, and we must accept everywhere is always a compromise between what means a desert, because if you want zero, we'll have a desert. I must remember that the environment is heritage of all species, not including humans, and doesn't mean poverty. If our choice is to arrive at zero, but we have no future, I don't know if it is good for environment and for sustainability. So, go on. Even if we got to pay attention, which is the heavy metal contamination status, we notice that there are some other dangerous metals that have higher concentration in the soil, that are cadmium, that are copper, that are zinc. I have never heard about a ban on these substances. So but since I am a technician, I have a question. But is a ban to lead, or is a trick to ban hunting? We must only. I work with number. So you must be clear. I may be in favor, against the ban of hunting. Personal position. In fact, but it's different. We know that the ban of lead, as has been shown before by Rossi and so on, has other consequences that are not only for hunting, but much higher for rural people too, as we see. Go on, because I must be short. They ask me, and I try to respect this one. We see that the lead used in European manufacturing is for the maximum part in automotive batteries. But now there is no ban on lead on batteries. we have, I may say, a virtuous situation because we have a great recycle. The 80% in battery production is recycled materials in lead acid batteries. Fantastic. As Rossi told before, we must distinguish between shooting range, where we can in part recover bullets and so on, and in hunting. So if again go to the number, we see that the percentage we have had, and we all of us agree, and a ban on wetland lands, and we see the positive result. So let's go to indicate to see which are the negative consequences of the proposal of lead. Well, first of all, a massive economic losses. Okay, we have a 6 billion of euro of annual hunting losses for all is linked. We have 14.5 billion of euro due to the firearm replacement. But I think that is not a true number, because I think that many people will not be able to spend other money. So the loss is different because they don't replace armament. But this means disemployment, no employment, no more employment. It means firms that must close. And then we have 4 billion of loss for industry. We have detailed in the table that obviously I don't spend too time. We have a problem with infrastructure and employment because, as was already said, we have the necessity to upgrade the shooting range, and it's not easy. We have we'll have that the small one will close. It's evident, it's trivial, all of us know that. So the result, which is 6,000 plus and 6,000, a study, again, not of a part, scientific study. They are supported by studies and so on. That means more than 16,000 direct job losses. We have the closure of the 20%, this business closure. We have a problem of the supply chain. So we have some true concrete problems, and which are, well, very important is the dependencies that may means tis a result next, please, because if we move from lead to bismuth to tungsten, we'll have a Chinese dominance. Perfect. Wonderful. So China can decide if to sell only to Russia or to Russia and Europe and so on, and to decide which is the winner, because it will be that's because China controls the 90% of global tungsten production. Okay, so we say that we have 3 alternatives still that we know that doesn't work properly. Tungsten, that work and cost a lot, on bismuth. Okay, Chinese dominance, obviously a strategic vulnerability, because in a period where we have so many geopolitical tension and export restriction, we decide to go toward a critical nation. But first of all, from my point of view of technician, that is a raw material, a strategic raw material. We must concentrate to have the smallest possible dependency on raw material. Okay, so if we need the tungsten, they will not use, and it will be critical, it will not used for ammunition in hunting, but for other reasons. And then there are all the many technical limitations, because as said before, and you will explain later, the alternative are not good for rimfire cartridges and for handgun pallets. we have problem, Rossi explained, about Olympic and competitive shooting. Not Europe, it's not. Remember, these are data of Europe, not of Italy. That must be clear.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is not a presentation of Italy. We will have a problem of quality control. So we have a lot of technical limitation. Last, but not least, I'm going to finish, is the many, problem due to the alternative, ammunition. Okay, steel, low density. So we have technical problem because it's necessary higher velocity. Because as Mr. Fiocchi told before, even for animals, there will be problem because we know that steel causes inflammatory responses in wildlife. We have environmental problem because bismuth can contain lead, can contain other contaminants. So we say that the price is too not true because to have pure bismuth, the price is higher. And I said I speak about tungsten, but I shouldn't because the environmental toxicity concerns are evident for technicians, and we know that we have not enough studies about that. So, when I pay attention to all the studies that are present from all sides, I may say, from the one side to another, I notice that there is an overestimation because the HECA data about bird mortality doesn't match with other scientific study. So probably it's necessary to revise this data. And first of all, absolutely underestimated the cost. The costs are absolutely underestimated. So to finish, which is the comprehensive impact summary. We have, next, 20 billions, of course, due to the transition. We have some alternative risks that we are not sure that they are environmentally friendly. Absolutely. We have at least 16,000 of direct employment losses. We have a supply dependency. I think that all the member state should make an objective choice. It must be based on scientific data, science, not ideology. And we must remember that sustainability means having a future. And future is not a desert. Europe can't isolate itself from the rest of the world. I think that is important sustainability, and is important development, growth, but rural Europe, all a part of Europe, is as important as urban Europe. So we must find a solution that may be acceptable for all of us, for an environment, a good environment, but with people inside that live, grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I started my working career before I became a politician, recycling lead in the south of Italy, and I love lead. 99% of lead is recycled, and which is good, in my opinion, from an environmental point of view. And it's available. It's easy to work. I love the element lead. Sorry, but it's my own. On top of that, I would like to add that I found it extremely interesting that CIP, which is the International Permanent Commission, which has power, is not an European agency, but it's an international one, which has power regarding all the technical characteristics of ammunition, has put out a decreased maximum pressure and velocity in the use of steel in ammunition, recognizing the danger of ricochet and damage to human beings. That should tell us a lot. Now, we go to a very, very, very strong technician. I had the pleasure to work with him in the past. Now, engineer Andrea Pomi, where is he? Oh, I call it. Engineer Andrea Pomi will talk about all the industrial and cost problematic regarding this possible ban of lead. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Pietro. So we can skip because Pietro is already with me. First of all, I want to say hello to everybody. Sorry, I come from for workshop, so I'm not so used to speak in this room. So I ask, sorry if my English will be not so very perfect. If you have any question for me, it's okay if you stop me, and I go deeply in the presentation. I'm an engineer, as Pietro explained to you, and the scope of this presentation is provide the minimum knowledge and information to understand the ammunition and the cartridge, because I think that we are discussing about lead in the cartridge, but most of you never seen and never know how a cartridge is made. This is very important to understand. And I will present the current production technology that we use to produce bullet in lead and in alternative to lead. And as I said, I'm an engineer, so in this presentation, I will not express any opinion in which material is the best, lead or alternatives. I just describe which impact each type of material has in production, in thermal energy, economical impact, environmental impact, according to my personal experience. Okay, so we can go ahead. We have to keep in mind what is an ammunition. An ammunition is a generic term used to describe something that produce work using propellant in the weapon to launch a projectile, in industrial device to perform a mechanical action like PIT in the production, in construction, and in the blank to produce a weapon. In all these activity, we could have the presence of lead in the bullet, lead in the primer mixture. So when we discuss the lead, we have to keep in mind all the components inside of an ammunition. So we focus our attention, because the time is very short, in ammunition used in the hunting, in the defense, and in the sport. And we focalize our attention in the center fire weapon. Other discussion could be done for shot shell, but the technology to produce a shot shell is a little bit different from a center fire ammunition. So normally a center fire ammunition consists in 4 main components, 4 main elements. The shell, that is the part that keeps the powder inside, a primer that ignite the powder, propellant of powder, and bullet. Okay, we can go.
Stop you a second. For those who you do not have a license to shoot, center fire ammunition are the metallic ammunition that goes in the pistols, for example. Okay,
Pistol, right, but
very, very different from the plastic one that goes in the rifle for hunting with the shots.
stop
Sorry.
me if everything is not clear, because for me it's quite common. So maybe most of you.
For you, normal.
So, but I make some imaging. We can go ahead. So we discuss this object. This object is a cartridge for center fire use. That means that consists in 4 elements: a primer, an external cases that keep the powder, and bullet. In this type of cartridge, we could find lead in two of these components, in the bullet and in the primer. So we focus our attention in the bullet and the primer, as I said, and this type of component can change the shape, can change the dimension according to the purpose we design the cartridge, for hunting, for defense, or for sporting. The configuration of the cartridge is influenced by the design of these two elements. We can go ahead. So just two words. In the primer, there are two main primer, boxer primer, that is the top one, and the rimfire. The boxer primer is most common in use in defense, hunting, and in sport. Rimfire is most common in the sport. I just put this presentation because, as we will see, if the lead will be banned, in the boxer primer is more easy to change the primer mixture. In the rimfire, that is the cartridge used for sporting and for Olympic Games, is not so used to change primer mixture or lead in the bullet. Okay? So how is made a primer? Primer is made in different component, but the red part, red disc you see in the picture is the explosive mixture. Explosive mixture in the most popular primer is made by lead stiffenate. Lead stiffenate have lead inside. Can we go ahead? Most. Any question? Okay, no issue. Most of
Quelli di
the
Point non mi stanno dando perché vogliono una sua foto.
Okay, no issue. There are different type of boxer primer that have standard lead mixture, leadless mixture, and heavy metal free mixture. Okay, this must be kept in mind. We can go ahead. So we have to look the history to understand the future. Why we have lead in the cartridge? In the beginning, the bullet was made by sphere because it was very easy to shoot in the smooth bore because the center of gravity of the sphere is the same center of where act the aerodynamic force. So it's very easy to shoot because it's a sphere. And why lead? Because it's easy to form, it's easy to cast, the temperature or melt is around to 330, and very cheap. So the beginning was lead and was sphere. After that, the knowledge moved from the sphere to the ogive profile, ogive geometry, to increase the trajectory, to increase the distance where we want to shoot the bullet. So was developed the rifling in the barrel. That means that to shoot a long bullet, we have to give to them a spin. Otherwise, without a spin, if you shoot in a smooth bore, you cannot shoot because the bullet upside down and fall down must be stabilized. This is an important point because with the development of the rifling in the barrel, we can go ahead. We have developed a lighter, faster bullet made of lead because it's very soft and can adapt very well to the rifling of the barrel, and in a jacket because without jacket, we have a lot of fooling, a lot of wearing of the internal rifling of the barrel. This must be very well understood because we will see in the future what's happened if we move from lead to the other type of material. We can go ahead. So we arrived to our days, and the bullets are principally made by a lead core internally and an external jacket. In the Your left side, you will see an hunting and sporting bullet. In the right side, you have a military bullet that has also a steel penetrator in front to increase the piercing capability. Okay. So now I show briefly how we produce this type of bullet. The production process of the bullet starts from lead. We buy lingot or we buy a billet. Internally to the company, we have a machine that is called extrusion press that push this lead cylinder to produce lead wire. The process is very fast due to the workability of the lead. You are able to produce very easy 500 kg, 1 ton per hour with one machine, very fast. After the lead wire, we move, we can go ahead. We move in a swaging press where we produce the lead core. It's a very fast machine that run around 400 stroke per minute and produce a huge quantity of lead core. That this lead core, we can go ahead, is put together with the brass strip in one transfer machine that produces bullet. Is a complex, but is a very fast process because the company in the last decades have improved, have optimized this process. So all the technology we have a high capability to produce, even if is very complex. We can go ahead. So what we have seen is that in ammunition company, there are a lot of machine, a lot of equipment with a high capex, that means a lot of investment from the point of view of the industry. That is improve and now is very efficient. And due to the fact that the lead is very easy to work, the OPEX, the cost of the tools, the wearing of the tools is very low. And the company is able to manage all the process, all the supply chain internally, from the raw material, lingots, to the final bullet, all internally to the company. So, how we can produce a lead-free bullet? We can, yes, we can, because for us it's a challenge. If there is no lead, we have to find other solution, and other solution were found. So now we see how we produce a copper. So normally in hunting and in sporting, the bullet is made in copper, electrolytic tip pitch type with a very high purity of copper. And we produce with two methodologies. One, cold stamping or turning. Okay, we can go ahead. So in both cases, different from the lead, we have to buy a semi-finished product. We cannot start internally, but we buy or copper wire or rods. Then starting from copper wire, we stamping, we cleaning, we have a turning, and after the deformation, we go to an annealing furnace, where we reduce the hardness of the bullet. And finally, we obtain the bullet. What we can say that if we comparated this type of technology with the previous one, you can imagine immediately that the power, the energy we use to produce the same quantity of bullet is higher. Is higher because the machines are stronger and we have to have a lot of annealing, so we spend more energy. We can go ahead. So for the point of view of the capex, also in this case, we have a high level of investment from the company, but copper is not so easy to work like lead, so we have a lot of tools that must be replaced. And so we have to use a dedicated lubrication system and lubrication oil. So for the point of view of the OPEX, the operative cost, we will have a lot of higher operative cost. There are another alternatives, very easy to produce that part from copper rod, very expensive. By turning machine, we can remove part of this material and obtain an ogive and projectile. But in this case, we have to use also in this case a special lubricant. And we have a lot of raw material waste. So if just we make a comparison from two bullets for hunting purpose, one semi-jacket soft point with lead jacket in copper and one made by copper, we have to say that the density of the copper is lower than the lead. So we have to increase, to obtain the same weight, we have to increase the length of the bullet. And due to the fact that the density is lower, we lost more velocity when we shoot. So we have to increase the velocity of the bullet. We have to speed up more. So, and to optimize the expansion of the bullet, also to the medium distance, we are obliged to put some plastic tip to have a better aerodynamic accuracy, aerodynamic drag, and to help in the expansion. We can go ahead. So what's happened? Have a copper bullet that is longer, harder, and faster. We have a lot of lead, a lot of copper that stay inside the barrel. So dirt and damaged barrel can make wrong shoot. That is dangerous for the shooter, is dangerous for the shot that leave the barrel, the barrel, and can be cause of serious injury. To avoid this, we have to use a dedicated powder and added some additives in the powder, like a tin dioxide or other element that remove the copper from our barrel. So if in the future lead will be banned, we will have another issue that we will not be able to use anymore lead primer. Lead in the primer help in the barrel like a lubricant, because the lead is a lubricant. So we will see a very high wear of the barrel that will give a premature wear and damage of the weapon, and we will have some risk in the shooter. So just to have a resume, very, very easy to understand, if we compare it to bullet, one with a lead, one without lead, we can say that the material cost for the copper bullet is higher than is, I think, easy to understand for everyone. The cost, the capex of an investment of the machine to produce both bullet is for both case high. The OPEX is higher in the copper because we have a lot of tools consumption. The productivity in the case of the copper bullet is less than the production of the bull due to the hard material if compared with the lead. For the internal ballistic, we have a barrel wearing higher, pressure higher, and higher deposit inside to the barrel. For the external point of view, we have energy retain less in the copper, less expansion, and risk of ricochet in case of wrong shoot. If you make a wrong shoot, lead impacting some stone and something else will deform, copper not. So we can go ahead. So now what we have seen that the ammunition factory having invested a lot of in production, so have a efficient production process thanks to the workability of the lead. And if they have to move to the copper, they have reinvest in the new equipment, they have partially rebuilt the existing one, and there will be an high risk that we will see, and that will be an uncontrolled proliferation of the copper bullet producer, also for the point of view of the public safety, because most of the producer that actually produce bolt will move in this production without any knowledge. In most of the cases, they are small, so they have not the knowledge about the CIP, not the knowledge of the rules that are under a bullet production. We can go ahead. So in the conclusion, what we will see that in case of lead will be banned, the use of alternative material will have a high energy impact to produce. If we compare it with the lead, we lost efficiency in our production plant. The cost of ammunition will increase, and we will see an uncontrolled proliferation of manufacturer that can be go in this market without expertise and with a small company, so with not competitive ready for the point of view of the capacity to support the cost, but just to go in a new market. So we lose the competitivity in Europe if we compare our production to other markets like the American market, where they have the possibility to find copper in easy way instead of Europe, and where they have great economy also in the production if compared with the small production here in Europe. And we will have cartridge with pure performance, less performance, and less high capability in hunting purpose. This is more or less the situation we will face on in case of the lead will be banned. This is all. Thank you for your attention.
Obviously, this was a speech from an engineer who was very passionate about producing ammunition, but I will sum it up. Lead is easy to work, it's cheap to work, it's deformable, it's easy to work. Any other solution is more expensive. And second point, if we ban lead in civilian ammunition, that means that the cost of military ammunition will grow. And this is not the moment to do this. I sum up about 50 minutes in Now we go to another topic which is extremely important, because obviously when we look at banning a chemical substance, we need to look at the environment, we need to look at economy, we need to look at jobs, but especially we need to look at human health and the danger of having this chemical substance presence in the air or in the ground or in the food and everything else. So now we move, and luckily will not come here, but we'll have a connection, digital connection to Professor Pier Mannucci, who's a Emeritus Professor of Medicine of the University of Milano, and has done a lot of work in several hospitals and several academic institutions in Italy, among which the Policlinico of Milano, the Ospedale Maggiore, so on and so on and so on. And he is really focused on the effects of some chemical substances to human health. So let's give the floor to Professor Mannucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was a pleasure to be. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I learned a lot from previous talks. I always like to learn something new. And the goal of my talk is to discuss whether or not the contamination of game meat by lead have some effects on human health. Next slide, please. Next slide. I have no conflict of interest to declare. I have no relationship with the hunting industry. I'm not a hunter myself. But next slide, please. Next. Approximate. I only want to say I have some experience and some interest, scientific interest on the environment. In fact, I do consider myself modestly apart as an expert on the environment, and I publish, and you can see here.
I would say that if we're gonna fix the technical problem, we stop here. But of course, Professor Mannucci work on lead contamination and effect on human health will be distributed to all the presents. So we can do that. Now we were joined by Charlie Weimers, which is a very important very important MEP from Sweden, very close to our battle. And so if you want to say a few words, please, Charlie.
Thank you, Pietro. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for inviting me to say a few words here today on this important topic. It is important because and shooting sports are part of our national culture. In the frozen forests where moose hunting is a way of life, Brussels now proposes to dictate what kind of bullets may or may not be used. Experts warn that the suggested alternatives are unsuitable for our conditions, more expensive, and in some cases unsafe. The tradition of practical training in the forests is threatened by this proposal, to name one example. But Sweden's concerns go further. Our government, which is a center-right government with the support of my party, has warned of negative impacts on Europe's ammunition production and defense capacity, something that the EU nowadays tends to say it holds dear. The proposal risks costly restructuring of production lines, weaken domestic supply, and undermine industrial resilience at a time when Europe needs to strengthen it. It is indeed inconsistent with the Commission's 2025 work program on defense and the European Council conclusions of the 6th of March, which call for a stronger defense industrial base. For these reasons, Sweden is opposing the draft lead ban, and we're not alone. Many other member states, as you know, share these concerns. And that is why today's discussion matters, not only for Sweden, not only for Italy, but for all of Europe. And let me thank Pietro Fiocchi once again for his hard work on this issue, for bringing us together today, and for giving hunters and fishermen a strong voice here in Brussels. It is needed. As we heard today, nobody denies the importance of protecting the environment, but real protection means science, proportionality, and subsidiarity, not sweeping bans. What we need are policies that work with hunters and fishermen, building on their knowledge and proven record of conserving nature. My final words would be this. Let us leave here determined. This is not just a fight about lead. It's a fight about common sense, cultural heritage, Europe's security, and the future of our countryside. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words here.
Thank you, Charlie. We hope that Professor Mannucci solved this problem, so we're going to try again to have him.
Can you see and hear me?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry not to be in Brussels. That I know that this presentation at distance sometimes cause problem. Anyway, can you put again my slides as you did originally? Okay, as I said, I have some competence in this field, particularly related to the problem of air pollution, just to show that I have no conflict of interest and some degree of competence on the environment. Next slide, please. Prossima. No, la prossima. La prossima. Ecco. Allora, first of all, I would like to say that we know all very well that excessive lead exposure causes several health problems across multiple organs. And the next slide shows the continuation of this slide shows that the organs that are mainly affected by excessive lead exposure. And I emphasize excessive lead exposure. Next slide, please. Next. Well, you can see easily from this graph that in children, the excessive lead exposure leads to problem of growth, to problem of development of the human body, so that children are particularly affected. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me or not?
Yes, we can hear you very well, Professor.
Okay, so children are particularly affected for the effect of lead on the development of the central nervous system, but also adults are affected. Certainly, the lead exposure, excessive lead exposure, causes anemia. It causes particularly cardiovascular problems and also problems of the kidney function. So there is no doubt that excessive, and I emphasize excessive lead exposure is a cause of many diseases and damage of the human body. Next, please. Next slide. I think that WHO demonstrated in 2021 that 1.5 billion deaths globally are attributed to excessive lead exposure, particularly and mainly for the cardiovascular effects. Next, please. And that the WHO has shown that there is no level of lead exposure that is safe. So there is no real threshold of safety. Next. But it is a fact indeed, as it was shown in previous presentation, that the social exposure to lead are decreasing in high-income countries, with the fact that they no longer gasoline, paints, plumbing make use of lead, even though, as we heard, car batteries are still a problem. But certainly, this problem of increasing problem in high-income countries is not parallel by what happens in low-income countries, where excessive lead exposure is still an important problem. And that is why there are so many deaths globally in the whole world attributed to excessive lead exposure, and mainly due to the cardiovascular effects. Next, please. I would like to emphasize that the primary lead contamination in high-income countries stem from impact intake of common food, water, and habitat exposure. So, as it was shown at the beginning of the presentation of this symposium. Next, please. Lead bullets are used to hunt game may cause secondary contamination of the meat and so also excessive lead exposure. But as you will see from my presentation, I will mainly deal with this aspect and we eventually see that the risk is very low if ever existing. Next. And so that's the question that I'm going to address, whether the lead containing hunted game meat is a risk for consumers. Next. How do we monitor whether or not the intake of game meat causes some problem in terms of excessive exposure to lead? By measuring blood lead levels that are considered proxies for chronic lead intake and related harm in the general population. Next, please. The alarm threshold, even though of lead concentration, had been decreasing throughout the year from 1971 to right now or a few years ago. And that is the expression of the fact that there is, on the whole, in the whole world, less and less exposure to lead for the reason that we mentioned: gasoline, less plumbing, and less paint apart from the car. So these are the alarm thresholds. And now we go into the specific issue of the risk of contamination by excessive intake of game meat. And this will be shown in the next slide. Next. Next. Okay, this study was carried out in the Greenland. And of course, it's a peculiar situation because the intake of game meat, the consumption of game meat in Greenland, for obvious reasons, is very different from what happens in Western Europe and Southern Europe. And you can see that the blood lead levels expressed in nanogram per ml, if you have a consumption of game meat monthly or 2-3 times monthly, which is a reasonable frequency of intake also for hunters, the level of blood levels of lead are below the alarm threshold. And only for people that eat game meat 4 or 5 times weekly, also every day, the levels as found in this study carried out, as I said, in the Greenland, are reach the alarm threshold, even though by a little increase the alarm threshold. So this is the first study that was a concern of the possibility that intake of game meat might cause chronic exposure to lead and increase in blood level of causing problem for the health. Because in very frequent consumers, the alarm threshold was reached. This was the first study, but there have been subsequent studies which I'm going to present in the next few slides. La prossima. This is a study which was carried out in Switzerland, so a country where there are many hunters, but where certainly the consumption of game meat is not as a regular meal, a daily meal, as it is in Greenland. And this author did tackle the problem whether the intake of lead from game meat was a risk to consumer health. Next. As you can see here, next slide, please, from the arrow. They compared controls of people that were not hunters with hunters, assuming that hunters were consuming more frequently than normal people. I think they were blood donors, so suitable controls. The hunters were consuming more frequently game meat. As you can see, the concentration in controls, but also in counters, did increase the alarm threshold of 100 nanogram per ml, but only occasional. And if there was an increase in blood lead concentration, it did occur in hunters, but also in control, even if it was slightly more frequent in hunters. So the first study did establish that for a normal consumption, a reasonable consumption of game meat, there is no risk of having excessive blood lead concentration. Next, please. These are the values above the threshold. And these are the values. And you can see this reproduced in numbers what I told you. Look at the red circle. In hunters, there were some hunters that had a level above 100 nanogram per kilo, but others were much below. And the median value representing the entire population was well below, was 59. And also their family members were not affected. Whereas among blood donors used as control, there were the occasional person that had high levels of blood level, even though not so there was no statistical difference between hunters and consumer of game meat and non-hunters, non-consumer of game meat. So this study done in Switzerland put some limits at the preoccupation that were raised by the result obtained in Greenland. Next, please. The conclusion from these early data that I repeat for you, the blood concentration of lead in moderate consumer of wild game meat are not different from those of people in the general population. And most importantly, next please, the study done by the Swiss colleague did show that the main four sources of lead intake and determine on lead blood levels in Western countries like Switzerland and supposedly also other European countries are the following very widely used foods: cereals, non-alcoholic drinks, milk and dairy products, vegetable, wine and water. So these two groups, they do not include animal meat, account for almost 60% of the total intake. So this is showing what was shown in the previous slide, that the intake from regular food is not very different from the intake from game meat, and that the soil contamination, the environmental contamination, is the main source in Western countries and in developed countries of the increase, if any, of lead blood levels. Next, please. With this background on the basis of the available study, in Milan some years ago, we decided to do this study in which we tackled the issue of the blood levels following consumption of game meat in Italy. And this was done by the University of Milan. Next, please. This is more recent, was organized independently for academic reasons by the University of Milan, but it was sponsored by the Hunter Association in Milan. Next. And blood level concentration were measured in measured blood collected more than 7 days after the day last game meat in consumer hunting, in order to avoid the acute effect and to look for the chronic effect, which are the most important from the point of view of the health. And we did a comparison of the hunters with control, where individuals living in the same environment of hunters, so friends, relatives, but non-consumer of game meat and non-hunter. So a suitable control with which the hunters were compared. Next, please. And these are the results of our study in brief. The mean and median values of blood lead levels in the study cases were lower than the concentration of control reported by in Regard in 2004 in Greenland. Emphasizing once again that that situation was peculiar to the very high consumption of gay meat in that country every day in practical. In the majority of study case, the lead blood levels were low, even in hunters, below the alarm of 100 nanograms per ml. Next, please. And among hunters, the blood levels were in average higher than in non-hunters. Next. However, the increase was not due to the consumption of gay meat because there was no relationship with the consumption of gay meat. So it was related to hunting. The levels were not dangerous, were not higher, but certainly hunters were at higher average blood levels, even though below the alarm level. And the increase was not due to the consumption of gay meat. A possible reason that I don't know how valid are for you, they're much more expert than me, was the fact that apparently it was considered the self-preparation of the bullets. From what I've seen before, now there is probably no one that's preparing his own bullet, and also for the fumes released by the guns. I don't know to which extent these possible reasons are realistic. You are much more expert than me, the previous speaker than me, and maybe so these are reasons that are not shown, but certainly that do explain the slight increase of blood levels in hunters compared to non-hunters. Next slide, please. We observe in this study that in Italy, as in Switzerland, the increase in the blood level were much more modest than in other northern countries, Alaska, northern Canada, Greenland, and Russia, and that can be explained by lower regular intake of gray meat in this country than in the northern countries, where the impact of gay meat hunting is more important. So these are the conclusions. A slight increase in hunters, but below the level that are considered dangerous and not related to the intake of gay meat, but to reasons that are not very clear. That is my presentation. Next slide, please. This is my hospital, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Mannucci, for your presentation. Now we go to the conclusion. What you said about gay meat is very important. In my opinion, that if you do not know how to clean it and take out the lead, obviously you have an intake of lead. But on the other hand, you have no intake of antibiotics or fat or other things which are not good for your health in any case. So I prefer lead, but this is only my opinion. I would like to, of course, thanks to all the participants. I know that a lot of them are connected via internet, and I follow up this 1.5 hours, which was quite dense. And I want to thank my MEP's colleague that came to see us, and everybody else, and the speakers and so on, because it's important to bring scientific evidence to the Commission to understand what they're doing. I want to, as a closing remark, remind everybody that hunting and fishing in Europe are regarding 15 million people, 15, and the business, the economic activities, and everything that goes around hunting and fishing is worth close to 300 billion euros, which is roughly 2% of the gross national product of Europe. So we shut down hunting and fishing, we go into economy recession, and we go into really bad times, because 2% of the gross national product is an important number. Now, we like to, for all of you that follow us and for the people that will receive all this documentation, which we will provide to everybody, to put pressure on their governments, because, like I said before, the banning of lead and ammunition and fishing was done by delegated act, so by passing the parliament, but of course the council of the member states have power to stop it or let it go. So it is important that the majority of the European nation say no to this initiative so we can kill it. Consider that on one side, the Commission is trying to get an okay by prorogation, derogation, and so on, but they're just moving the problem to a next date. They're not solving the problem. And by the way, I would like for you to read, if you want to, the original document by the Commission, in which they say that the reason why they want ban lead in ammunition and fishing because there is a major problem about the European citizen, because each European citizen eats 80 kilos, I say 80 kilos of wild meat a year. That's counting also the newly born kids that everybody has. I mean, I eat a lot of wild meats, but I may get to 10, 12 kilos a year, not 80 kilos. So the proposal by the Commission is already based on false information, in my opinion. So this is very important. But now, we're here to bring some truth, to bring scientific evidence, to do the right decision for the European citizens, which is very important. We have to consider everything, because every decision by the European Parliament has some effect on economy, on jobs, on human health, on environment, on everything else, on tradition, and so on. So we have to be extremely good. Of course, we have to even push more for the sector to do more in terms of recycling, recuperating, and I'm talking about shots, I'm talking about words, I'm talking about plastic, about talking about the targets in trap shooting and so on. And this is very important. And we need to invest a lot in the environmental work, which for me is fishermen and hunters are the real sentinels of the environment, because they're out there. They want the environment to be clean and functioning, because otherwise their passion will die. So that's it. Thank you to everybody and have a good day.